Chapter 477. Since we're going to compete, let's start with the basics, Tang Xiaoxi said. Since Mu is a beginner, how about we compete in level 1 engraving? Wei Miao was confident, the arrogance in his eyes was unconcealed. He looked at Lin Muyu with disdain and said, Level 1 engraving? I'm afraid Commander Yu hasn't been practicing for long and hasn't mastered level 1 engraving yet. Then let's go with level 1 engraving. Lin Muyu smiled. But what's the point of just competing? Let's have a wager. Right, what wager? Wei Miao asked. Lin Muyu said, if I lose I'll give you 50,000 Jinyin dollars. If I win, Master Wei Miao, you must work for the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce for free for a year. What do you think? Right. Wei Miao said proudly. Then let's compete in level 1 engraving, fire engraving. It's the most basic engraving formation. Let's compete in perfection. What do you think? Sure. Bring 2 sets of armor and 2 red agates, Jin Xiaoting ordered with a smile. Soon a group of people gathered in the back hall of the Chamber of Commerce. Almost all the engravers had arrived. Everyone was looking forward to the competition. Of course, most of them thought that Lin Muyu, who was known as one of the 4 heroes of Lanyan, was destined to be humiliated this time. Engraving was different from martial arts. It was not something that could be achieved with perseverance and talent. What was more important was potential and wisdom. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The Emperor's combat flame circled around the carving knife. The moment Lin Muyu started carving, her skillful technique shocked Wei Miao. But Wei Miao was an engraving master after all. He was one of the top engravers in Lanyan City. After calming himself down, the carving knife flew across the surface of the armor. True qi gathered around the carving knife, turning the surface of the armor into powder. The carving knife spun rapidly like a dragon swimming in the sea. In terms of technique, he seemed to be even better than Lin Muyu. In the blink of an eye, the 2 sets of armor had been engraved. At the side, Jin Xiaotang, the notary, announced loudly, the engraving is complete. Master Wei Miao, 327 cuts. Brother Yu, 334 cuts. In terms of knife skills, Wei Miao won. Fortunately, this was not a competition of knife skills, but a competition of perfection. Lin Muyu held the armor with full confidence. The profound formation had a strong resonance with him, and he could even confirm that his engraving would definitely win. Sealing Master Zhang Zhao walked forward and placed the testing crystal on Wei Miao's work. Under the illumination of the light, the profound formation's energy seeped into the crystal. Instantly, the number jumped up and stopped at a huge number, 92%. Alright. In the surroundings, the group of engravers cheered. Although it was only a simple level 1 engraving, the number of people who could achieve 90% and above was definitely a minority. Holding the crystal, Zhang Zhao approached Lin Muyu and said respectfully, Commander Yu, I apologize for my lack of manners. Come on. Lin Muyu smiled brightly. When the testing crystal was placed horizontally on the armor, the Imperial Fire Seal had already appeared on the armor. A fiery red seal formation appeared, very beautiful, and the seal formation's energy seeped into the crystal continuously. The number jumped up and down violently, finally stopping at a shocking number, 100%. In an instant, the surroundings became silent. All the engravers were dumbfounded. A few seconds later, an uproar of applause sounded. Commander Yu, you're too amazing. As expected of the 4 heroes of Lanyan, 100% perfection, my god, this is too unbelievable. Jin Xiaotang announced with a smile. Brother Yu wins. Wei Miao's face was full of disappointment. He sat there desolately like a defeated rooster. Master Wei Miao, the engraving of the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce for the next year will be in your hands. Lin Muyu stood up and smiled. Don't worry, we will still provide for your basic necessities. Wei Miao stood up as well. The arrogance in his eyes disappeared as he said, Commander Yu, I admit defeat and admit defeat. I just don't know who your master is. How did you achieve a perfect engraving? I don't have any master, I'm self-taught. Self-taught. Wei Miao and the other engravers' jaws almost dropped. Lin Muyu's words had completely overturned their understanding of engraving. Yes, I'm self-taught, I can attest to that. Tang Xiaoxi smiled. Wei Miao's face was solemn. Commander Yu's talent is extraordinary. I, Wei Miao, am sincerely convinced. What's there to be convinced about? Lin Muyu laughed at herself. I can do a level 1 engraving with 98% perfection, but I've never done a level 2 engraving. They're all failures. What? Wei Miao couldn't help but laugh. Commander Yu, please don't lie to me. How is that possible? You haven't completed level 2 engraving? Yes, it seems like there's a problem. Where did you learn to verify? In a book. Which book? The Engraving Formation Manual. Suddenly Wei Miao laughed so hard that tears almost rolled down his cheeks. Commander Yu, no one has read that book for 10 years because many of the manuals are flawed and incomplete. Not a single engraver still studies those engraving formations. This. Lin Muyu stood there awkwardly. Tang Xiaoxi said, Master Wei Miao, since you're an expert in engraving, why don't you lend your manual to Mu? I'm sorry, Princess Shi. Wei Miao cupped his fists. It's not that I'm unwilling to teach Commander Yu, but there's a rule in the engraving world. Family engraving cannot be passed on to outsiders. This is what my father taught me when I was young. Please forgive me for not being able to teach Commander Yu. It's fine. Lin Muyu waved her hand and smiled. I'll study it myself. There will be a way out. Thank you for your understanding, Commander Yu. As they walked out of the Zine Flower Merchant Association, Tang Xiaoxi couldn't hold back her temper anymore. She pouted and said unhappily, that Wei Miao is such a jerk. How dare he say he won't teach it to outsiders? Our Mu is giving him face by learning engraving from him. How dare he be so arrogant? I'm so angry. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh and patted her shoulder. Xiaoxi, you're too hot-tempered. It's not good. Then Mu, are you still learning engraving? Of course, but without a better and more complete manual I can't continue learning. There are many different martial arts manuals in the Zine Flower Merchant Association, but there isn't a single book related to engraving. It's strange. It seems like the engraving world's rules are true. Every family's engraving cannot be passed on to outsiders. The versions that are circulated outside are either incomplete or full of mistakes. Then what should we do? Tang Xiaoxi pouted and looked unhappy. It was as if she was unhappy because Lin Muyu couldn't learn engraving. It's okay. One must have ambition. If they don't want to teach me, I don't want to learn from them. Lin Muyu crossed her arms and suddenly squinted her eyes and said, Xiaoxi, help me find out who the most famous sealers are in the past few thousand years and where their graves are buried. The more specific the better, Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but smile. You, a dignified general of the empire and a grand deacon of the temple, don't tell me you want to rob a grave. Otherwise, only the corpses would have some ancient books on advanced engraving techniques. It's much better to look for them than to randomly search for them. What's wrong, little Shi? You don't want to rob the tomb with me? Or do you think it's beneath you to do such a thing? Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Tang Xiaoxi's cheeks instantly turned red. She smiled shyly and said, No, it's just that. I'm just going to rob a grave with you. Just thinking about it makes me a little excited. Damn you bastard. In Zetian Palace, Empress Qin Yin was wearing a simple dress that outlined her graceful and perfect figure. The heaven-suppressing sword was placed on the sword rack at the side, and she was flipping through a book called The Strategy of Governance. When she heard Lin Muyu's words, the book in her hand immediately fell to the ground. Her majestic demeanor disappeared in the blink of an eye. She stood up and said, What? You're going to rob a grave? Yes. Lin Muyu said, I want to become a top engraver, so I have to do this. Brother Yu, you are leaving again. Qin Yin looked unhappy. Shengguan Jingyue smiled and said, Your Highness, are you acting coquettishly? Lin Muyu was amused. Qin Yin blushed and said, No, I just feel that the Grand Deacon of the temple should stay at Lanyan City to accompany the Emperor. Shengguan Jingyue smiled. This smile made Qin Yin even more bashful and her face blushed. Then, have you decided where to go? Yes. Lin Muyu nodded and said, The most recent engraver is Qin Bing, a divine engraver from 4,000 years ago. He is also a prince of the empire. It is said that his mausoleum is in the cloud refining mountains in Qihai province, so I plan to go there with Xiaoxi. If we are lucky, we might be able to find a decent engraver book in Qin Bing's mausoleum. I hope that Xiao Yin can allow me to go. Qin Yin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said softly, Brother Yu, what's wrong, Xiao Yin? Lin Muyu's voice was also very gentle. Qin Yin raised her eyebrows and stared at him with her starry eyes. You mean to tell me that you want to dig up the mausoleum of the Qin family's ancestors and you have to inform me? Suddenly Feng Jixing and Zhang Wei burst out laughing. Lin Muyu was slightly embarrassed and said with a fist and palm salute, I promise that I will not destroy Qin Bing's body. Besides, it has been so many years, it is hard to say whether the mausoleum has been destroyed by tomb robbers or not. Qin Yin raised her eyebrows proudly and said, If you want to go then go. You don't need to inform me. I only have one request, come back early. The Empire needs you in Lanyan City. Yes, this general will obey. Lin Muyu cupped her fist and saluted seriously. She said with a smile, Then I will leave in the afternoon. Yes. Qin Yin looked at Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi walking side by side and felt lost. Feng Jixing saw this and said with a fist and palm salute, Your Highness, you see. If you and Princess Shi go alone, I don't know what will happen. Qin Yin felt even more uncomfortable. She looked at Feng Jixing faintly and said, General Feng, what are you trying to say? Feng Jixing laughed and said, I want to say, find a chance to settle the matter. It's reasonable for the Empress to get married. We can't possibly leave the great Qin Empire without a successor. After you and Ayu get married, it will be perfectly justifiable for Ayu to be conferred the title of queen. This, Qin Yin blushed and said with a voice like a mosquito, Let's wait for him to come back. Chapter 478. The setting sun drew a long arc in the sky. On the long launchy ancient road, 3 people and 3 horses galloped at high speed. Lin Muyu was dressed in a white imperial robe and armor with the star's sword on her back. She didn't hide anything. Tang Xiaoxi, who was beside her, was also dressed in a military uniform. She wore a snow-white fur armor and a milky white animal skin short skirt, which outlined her exquisite figure beautifully. She wore an exquisite cloak embroidered with gold edges, which looked luxurious but not too shabby. The nation-suppressing whip, which was glowing with a faint flame, was at her waist. Behind the 2 of them was Bai Yin, who was on a slightly weaker warhorse. As Lin Muyu's personal bodyguard, Qin Yin had forced Bai Yin to tag along. Firstly, Bai Yin was quite strong and could help Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi. Secondly, Bai Yin was a super bandit who ran amok in the martial world. In a sense, he was better at robbing tombs. However, when Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi were chatting, the beautiful princess, she would let out a series of silvery bell-like sounds. This inevitably made Bai Yin feel a little awkward. He felt like he was a big light bulb following behind the 2 of them. However, this was an order from Empress Qin Yin, so he had no choice but to follow. One day later they entered the Seven Seas province. 3 days later, they entered the refined cloud forest at the eastern border of the Seven Seas province. It was already winter and most of the trees in the refined cloud forest were red maples. At this time the red maples had already withered, but they were still as red as fire. When the warhorses stepped into the refined cloud forest, Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but chuckle and said, Grandpa brought me here when I was young. However, I wasn't very sensible at that time and felt that Grandpa was too cautious. Now it seems that Grandpa's cautiousness isn't without reason. What do you mean? Lin Muyu asked. Tang Xiaoxi said, The refinement cloud forest is close to the north of the dragon-seeking forest. So many spirit beasts have entered the forest from the dragon-seeking forest. They often kill humans' livestock and sometimes even attack civilians. Therefore, most of the civilians in the refinement cloud forest have moved away. The ones left are hunters who make a living by hunting. No wonder there are so few people along the way. Yes, we have to be careful. Spirit beasts could appear here at any time. Bai Yin pulled out a steel sword with a dang sound and entered a state of alert. This was the steel sword that the royal guards were equipped with. It was extremely sharp and was of the spirit grade. When Qin Yin bestowed this sword to him, he was almost overjoyed. The horse's hooves trod on the thick layer of fiery red maple leaves as it slowly advanced. Lin Muyu was not as nervous as Bai Yin. After all, he had the spirit pulse technique and could sense the aura of spiritual beasts from several kilometers away. Spiritual beasts were not like Bai Yin, who was proficient in the tortoise breathing technique to conceal their aura. It would be difficult for them to escape the spirit pulse technique's control. Look, there's a village over there. Tang Xiaoxi excitedly pointed in the distance. There was smoke curling up from chimneys and the villagers were cooking. The village was located in the middle of the mountain and there seemed to be a few dozen households. This was the first inhabited place within a few hundred kilometers. Tang Xiaoxi's excitement was naturally understandable. After all, walking in this desolate and uninhabited area was a feeling of isolation and suffocation. Bai Yin looked up at the sky and saw that it was already dusk. He said, "Commander, it's getting dark and it's not safe in the mountains. Why don't we rest in this village and spend a few gold coins to eat a full meal and then get a good night's sleep? At the same time, we can also find out which direction the Huai royal tomb is in the cloud refining mountain range." Yes. Lin Muyu nodded. What Bai Yin said made sense. They only knew the general direction of King Huai's mausoleum, but they did not know the exact location. In any case, King Huai's mausoleum belonged to a king from 400 years ago. In other words, on Earth 4,000 years ago was the Shang dynasty. Who knew where the mausoleum of a king was? When the three of them led the horses into the village, a few hunters who were skinning a muntjac were startled. It seemed that no one had come to this village for a long time. Each of them were dumbfounded and didn't know what to say. Tang Xiaoxi stepped forward and gracefully cupped her hands with a flowery smile. Then she said with a gentle smile, "Hello, uncle. We're travelers from Lanyan City, the capital of the imperial capital. We're looking for a place to rest for the night. I wonder if you can introduce us to a resident." "Ah, that's right." One of the hunters stepped forward and said, "Miss, you look like a lady from a wealthy family. Our village hasn't had someone like you for many years. How about this? I'll take you to the village chief's house. Only the village chief's house has spare rooms." "Hey, thank you very much." "You're welcome. Please follow me." Lin Muyu quickened her steps to catch up. She smiled and asked, "Uncle, your place is like a paradise. Do you just hunt for a living?" "Yes." The hunter said, "The land in the mountains is barren. There are stones everywhere. There is no way to farm, so we can only hunt. Fortunately, there is a lot of game in this forest. We often hunt muntjac, badger, wild boar, wild rabbit, and so on. We skin them and sell them in the city 300 miles away. It can also support our family." Oh. Lin Muyu didn't ask any more questions. Not long after, they arrived at the village chief's house. The village chief was an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion. He looked to be in his 70s. After learning why Lin Muyu and the others had come, he immediately arranged 2 rooms for them. He then asked his son and daughter-in-law to start a fire to cook for passers-by. Tang Xiaoxi also took out 2 Jinan coins and handed them to him. In fact, 1 Jinan coin was enough to support the village chief's family for a year, let alone 2. The village chief was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. Dinner was quite sumptuous. There were 2 plates of stir-fried wild vegetables, a plate of rabbit meat and a plate of flatbread. This kind of food was probably the standard for people in the mountains during the New Year. Therefore Lin Muyu and Bai Yin ate a lot of flatbread gratefully and left the rabbit meat for Tang Xiaoxi, who knew that Tang Xiaoxi was also very sensible. She kept putting the rabbit meat into the old village chief's bowl, making him very happy. After dinner, it was time to get down to business. Each of them had a cup of tea. The village chief narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Young heroes, you must not have come to our desolate little village for us. Could it be that you want to enter the cloud refining mountain range to hunt high-grade spirit beasts? Looking at your restrained auras, you must be cultivators with profound cultivation bases." Tang Xiaoxi smiled. "You saw through us. But we are not here for the spirit beasts. Village chief, we would like to ask you something." "Oh, please ask away. Do you know where the Huai King's tomb is?" Tang Xiaoxi asked. "The Huai King's tomb?" The village chief was stunned. "I wonder, which king is that?" The Cloud Refinement Mountains used to be a prosperous place. Many nobles' tombs are buried here. The Huai King Qin Bing from 4,000 years ago. He is also the Empire's most recent divine sealer. Do you remember him, village chief? Lin Miu asked. Divine sealer. The village chief stroked his beard and pondered for a while. Suddenly he raised his head and said, "I remember now. There was indeed a king who focused on engraving. His name was Qin Bing. 7 years ago, He suddenly stopped talking. Tang Xiaoxi was a little anxious. She asked, "What happened 7 years ago, Grandpa Head?" When she called him Grandpa, the village head was immediately overjoyed. After all, such a beautiful little girl looked like she was from a noble family. It was good enough that she didn't call him old man. But now she called him Grandpa. There was nothing he could say about it. 7 years ago there were also 3 mercenaries who claimed to be adventurers who passed through our village. Like you, they were also heading for the King Huai's tomb. I told them the direction, but unfortunately they never appeared again. Maybe they were looking for treasures, or maybe they have disappeared. Lin Muyu asked, "Do you know the specific location of the Huai King's tomb?" "Yes." The village chief nodded hard and said, "I won't hide it from you, my ancestor was one of the craftsmen who built King Huai's tomb. Unfortunately he didn't come back. I heard this from my grandfather's generation. People say that King Huai's tomb is very strange, so I advise you young heroes that life is precious. Don't go if you can avoid it." Lin Muyu was stunned and didn't speak. Tang Xiaoxi was as smart as snow. With a coquettish tone she said, "Grandpa village chief, don't worry. Mercenaries can't be compared to us. Our own strength is much stronger, so we will be fine. Come Baiyin, show us your strength and let Grandpa village chief see it." "Yes." Baiyin took a few steps back. After a low shout he activated the Xianxia tactics. His body was covered with raging flames and his martial spirit roared. The aura of a heavenly king was very threatening. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi were saint-level warriors, so it didn't matter. But the village chief was so scared that he took a few steps back. He said with a face full of horror, "This young hero's power is really not simple. So powerful it scared me to death." Tang Xiaoxi moved to the side of the village chief like a butterfly and held his arm. She smiled and said, "Grandpa Head, don't be afraid. We don't have any bad intentions. You just need to tell us where the Huai King's tomb is." The village chief nodded his head with lingering fear. He pointed to the east and said, "Tomorrow morning, go in the direction of the sunrise. After climbing over 7 mountains you will see a canyon. Deep in the canyon is a pool. Jump into the pool. At the bottom of the pool there is an underwater passage. Swim through the passage and you will reach the Huai King's tomb. But you must be careful. Don't come into contact with the people living around the canyon. Otherwise you will regret it for the rest of your life." "The people living around the canyon?" Tang Xiaoxi was stunned. "Why?" "Anyway, just listen to Grandpa. It won't go wrong." The village chief looked like he was afraid and didn't say another word. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi looked at each other. It seemed that this trip to the Huai King's tomb was not that simple. Chapter 479. Early in the morning, facing the rising sun, the young man finally set off. Actually, it couldn't be considered early in the morning. Before the sun rose, Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but drag Baiyin out of bed and set off. The 3 horses galloped away, leaving the small village in the blink of an eye. The mountainous terrain was difficult to traverse. When the war horses reached the mountainside, they couldn't ride them anymore. They could only dismount and lead the horses forward. The road was full of thistles and thorns. Lin Muyu cut through the thistles and thorns with her stellar sword, causing Baiyin's heart to ache. It was such a pity that a substandard divine weapon like the stellar sword was used to open a path. It was already dusk when they finished traversing the 7 mountains. When the 3 of them stood on the mountaintop, they couldn't help but be shocked by the scenery in front of them. The vast valley was surrounded by clouds and mist, as if it was a fairyland. Between the mountains and forests in the valley, there were simple and crude thatched huts. They were probably the residents that the village chief had mentioned. They had to stay away from these residents. Lin Muyu thought about the village chief's words and said, "It's getting late. Let's not enter the valley now. We'll go in tomorrow at daybreak. Let's find a place to hide from the wind and set up camp on the mountaintop." Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said, "Okay." Thus they set up camp under a rock wall that blocked the wind and set up 2 tents. After the tents were set up, they started a fire and cooked the swan and eye meat. Baiyin was lucky today to be able to enjoy the swan and eye meat together. The meat soup was mellow and fragrant. After eating and drinking their fill, the 3 of them sat around the bonfire and cultivated. Lin Muyu immediately refined the spiritual energy in the swan and eye meat in her stomach. She felt the energy in her body grow stronger and her cultivation increased a little. Tang Xiaoxi closed her beautiful eyes and the aura of flames surrounded her body. The image of the 2-tailed fire fox was faintly discernible. Woo-woo. Baiyin found it rather difficult to refine the spiritual energy in the swan and eye meat. Moreover, his face started to turn red and he looked like he was about to lose control. "Lord Commander, what happened to me?" Baiyin looked at Lin Muyu in pain, then turned to look at Tang Xiaoxi. Princess Shi, who was as beautiful as a flower, was so alluring. The confusion in Bai Yin's eyes began to turn into desire. Bai Yin, control your mind. Don't have any improper thoughts. Lin Muyu said calmly. Her meaning was clear. Xiaoxi is my woman. You can't touch her as you please. Besides, Tang Xiaoxi's strength had already reached the first layer of the Saint Realm, and after her transformation she would at least leap to the level of the Holy King Realm. Bai Yin was no match for her at all. Putting aside molestation, he would be lucky not to be beaten to death. At this time, Tang Xiaoxi opened her eyes and couldn't help but laugh. He doesn't know the mind-cleansing incantation. Mu, why do you have to tease him like this? Let me deal with him. As she spoke, she formed a seal with her fingers and a blue light condensed between her snow-white fingers. She shouted softly in the air, heart-cleansing incantation. Whoosh! The blue light rushed over and cleansed the heat on Bai Yin's body. His mind instantly became clear and he couldn't help but blush. He said, I'm ashamed. It's fine. Swanee's flesh is hot by nature. I was the same back then. Refine the spiritual energy in your flesh. It will be of great benefit to your cultivation, Lin Muyu said. Yes, thank you, Commander. Bai Yin cupped his fists respectfully. Lin Muyu was secretly gratified. Although Bai Yin was a great bandit, he wasn't someone who harbored evil intentions. She could tell from his actions just now. It was late at night. Tang Xiaoxi crawled into one of the tents while Bai Yin entered the other. Thus, Lin Muyu was faced with a difficult choice. If she entered Tang Xiaoxi's tent, it would be easy for Bai Yin to overthink things. If she entered Bai Yin's tent, she would overthink things. How could a straight man's dignity be blasphemed? There was no room for negotiation. Tang Xiaoxi pulled open a corner of the tent and revealed her cute head. She smiled and asked, "You're still not coming in? Are you embarrassed?" The tent at the side was also pulled open. Bai Yin said righteously, "Commander, it's fine. You can sleep with Princess Shi. I promise to keep my mouth shut. Besides, it's not like you haven't slept together before." Lin Muyu rolled her eyes at him and said, "I won't sleep tonight. I'll keep watch for you. It's not too safe here, so you two should sleep. Bai Yin, wake up at the 4th watch and replace me. I only need to sleep for 2 hours." "Yes, I understand." However, Tang Xiaoxi pouted her lips and looked unwilling. After being together with Lin Muyu for so long, she had long treated Lin Muyu as the closest person to her, even though she hadn't completely let go of her reserved nature. She had even abandoned her clan and made Lin Muyu her only one. This kind of dependence was self-evident. Lin Muyu looked at Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful and delicate appearance and couldn't help but smile. She walked forward with her stellar sword and patted Tang Xiaoxi's head. She smiled and said, "I'll stay here with you. I won't go far." As she spoke, she sat down with her back facing Tang Xiaoxi's tent. Tang Xiaoxi nodded in satisfaction and left a small opening in the tent. This way, when she lay down, she could see Lin Muyu sitting outside. She was probably tired and soon fell asleep. The cold night wind whistled past. Lin Muyu sat there majestically. His body was surrounded by starlight and the stars in the sky gathered around him. It looked like a spectacle. It had been too long since he had a breakthrough in the stellar formula. He had to train hard. The only advantage of the stellar formula over the 7 planets was that there were no side effects. As long as he had enough battle chi, he could use it continuously. This was also the biggest reason why Lin Muyu trained so hard. In the night sky, starlight flickered around his armor. Lin Muyu closed his eyes and released his spirit sense into the realm of the stellar formula. After an unknown amount of time, an unpleasant smell suddenly came along with the wind. It was accompanied by a hair-raising woo-woo sound like the cry of a zombie. Huh. Lin Muyu hurriedly opened his eyes. The bonfire had already been extinguished, but there was a figure moving between the rocks and shrubs in the south. He opened his palm and the starlight surged, illuminating nearly 100 meters. It was a human, but not a normal human. His skin was petrified and turned into the shape of fish scales. Suddenly, a word jumped in Lin Muyu's heart. Stonefish? God, there really is such a disease in this world and such a person. The upper half of the stonefish patient's body had begun to petrify. There were 2 lifeless eyes on his rock-like face. He walked over step by step, his body gently swaying in the cold wind. Stonefish patients should not touch his skin, or else they would also get stonefish. The sun was about to rise. Lin Muyu hurriedly said, Xiaoxi Bai Yin, get up, we have trouble. Inside the tent, the two sleeping in their clothes immediately walked out. When they saw the stonefish patient in front of them, Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but be stunned. Her mouth was wide open and her eyes were filled with disbelief. Stonefish. Bai Yin was experienced and knowledgeable. He lightly said, "Don't touch him and don't touch his saliva or blood, or else you will also get stonefish." "Commander, I'll hold him back, you guys leave quickly." "No." Lin Muyu pointed to the right and said, "There are more over there." Following the direction of his finger as expected, a ray of sunlight pierced through the clouds and landed on the mountain. The stonefish patients swayed over, and they had already fallen into a state of unconsciousness. "Leave the tent, get ready to leave." Lin Muyu's voice was unquestionable. He suddenly opened his palm and a golden ray of light flew out, turning into a gourd vine that wrapped around the stonefish patient at the front. Bai Yin drew his sword and was ready to make a move. "Don't kill them." Lin Muyu pulled Tang Xiaoxi's hand and jumped down the mountain. "Just trap them, we don't have to kill them. The stonefish patients move slowly, we just need to leave." "Yes." Bai Yin returned his sword to its scabbard, and with a leap he activated Absolute Step and chased after Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu flew away, using the gourd vines to trap the stonefish patients. At the same time he glanced at the three horses in the distance. Fortunately, the stonefish patients did not seem to be interested in the horses, they were only interested in humans, so there was no need to worry about the horses. For a moment, golden gourd vines rose from the mountain, trapping the stonefish patients. In the blink of an eye, there were more than 10 golden gourd vines on the mountain, and each of them consumed a certain amount of their martial spirit's power. Just when the 7 luminaries' immortal gourds Xianxia was about to be used up, a pool of water appeared in front of them. "We're here." Bai Yin was shocked. I don't know how to swim." Lin Muyu glared at him. "You know the turtle breathing technique, but you don't know how to swim? This subordinate really doesn't know how to swim." Bai Yin was ashamed. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but laugh. "Just grab the other end of my nation-suppressing whip, jump into the water and use the turtle breathing technique to hold your breath. Mu and I will swim with you." "Yes." Lin Muyu said, "Summon your battle armor, otherwise your body won't be able to take it if the water is too cold." The three of them summoned their battle armor at the same time, their battle chi swirling around them, and they jumped into the water. Under the cover of their battle armor, the water couldn't touch their skin, so Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi were able to open their eyes. On the other hand, Bai Yin, who was proficient in the turtle breathing technique but didn't know how to swim, was too scared to open his eyes. Behind them, the wails of the stoneflies came from the shore. Lin Muyu withdrew the 7 luminaries' immortal gourds Xianxia and raised her starlight sword to illuminate the depths of the water. The pool was not very deep. After 20 meters they would reach the bottom. Sure enough, there was a stone passageway. There were even patterns carved around the passageway. It was clearly a representation of human civilization. The design here was truly ingenious. Lin Muyu held Tang Xiaoxi's hand and swam forward, while the long tail of the 9-segmented whip tugged at Bai Yin. Bai Yin did not dare to open his eyes, so his face slammed directly into the stone wall at the top of the passageway. Bang! It was painful to hear. This idiot. Lin Muyu was furious. This subordinate of hers was too stupid, and he had the nerve to call himself the Saint Thief. Tang Xiaoxi giggled, and with a flick of her nation-suppressing whip, she gently pulled Bai Yin over. They continued to swim forward, and soon they reached the bottom of the pond, only to find that they were surrounded by a different world. Chapter 480. This was a mausoleum that had been excavated from the inside of the mountain. 9 huge pillars carved with purple flowers stood around the mausoleum. In the center of the pillars, there was a throne quietly placed there. Below the throne were the words "Huai Royal Mausoleum." Lin Muyu walked forward and shook off the water on her body. She squinted her eyes and said, "Huai Royal Mausoleum? Looks like we didn't find the wrong place. This is the place." Tang Xiaoxi looked around, her face full of confusion. "But how are we going to enter the mausoleum? From the looks of it, there's no way to find it." "Not necessarily." Lin Muyu's gaze landed on the wall not far away. There were ancient murals engraved there. There were humans, livestock, and even some dazzling gods. Seemed like the Qin clan 4,000 years ago believed in these things. Humans cultivated and cultivated, while the gods ruled over the three realms. Bai Yin walked forward and gently stroked the carvings. Suddenly his eyes turned cold. He exerted some force in his palm, and the stone brick formed by the carvings was moved. Rumble. The rumbling sound was incessant, and a hole about a meter long appeared. Amazing. Bai Yin, you must have raided tombs before. Lin Muyu said confidently. Bai Yin was a little embarrassed. Commander, I'm only good at leaping onto roofs and vaulting over walls. I've never done something like raiding tombs before. Just now, I discovered that this brick had signs of being moved. Look, the dust on the other carvings is thicker than this one. That's why I guessed that there would be a clue here. Smart. Lin Muyu stood in front of the cave entrance and felt a gust of cold wind brushing against her face. Moreover, after the cave entrance was opened, a strong wave came from the spiritual pulse technique. What's wrong? Tang Xiaoxi asked. There's a spirit beast below the tomb. Its aura is very strong. Lin Muyu said lightly. Spirit beast? Tang Xiaoxi was stunned. Bai Yin said, it should be a holy tomb guardian beast. Many nobles will bury a spiritual beast that has lived for several thousand years in the first level of their tomb as a holy tomb guardian beast. Spiritual beasts can survive by absorbing the spiritual energy of the world. These spiritual beasts can often live for tens of thousands of years, and, after absorbing too much of the deathly aura from the ground, these spiritual beasts will become extremely vicious. We have to be careful. No matter how powerful the spiritual beast that was buried with Huai Prince Qinbing was, it has now gained another 4,000 years of age. Yes. Lin Muyu slowly unsheathed her stellar sword. With a light wave of her left hand, a golden dragon blood shield materialized. She said, I'll go down and take a look. You two wait outside. I'll call you if I need help. Yes, Commander. Tang Xiaoxi opened her mouth and wanted to say something but stopped herself. She wanted to follow them in, but she was afraid of being scolded by Lin Muyu. In this world he was probably the only one who dared to scold Tang Xiaoxi. Whoosh. In the cold wind, Lin Muyu leaped and landed steadily on the stairs of the first level of the tomb. She slowly stepped in. It was very cold inside. The stellar sword glowed with a dazzling light, illuminating the surroundings. The strong aura was about 100 meters ahead. Lin Muyu was not in a hurry. She slowly walked over. At the same time she glanced around and found piles of white bones on the ground. They were very fragmented and most of them seemed to have been digested and corroded. They must have been eaten by spiritual beasts and then excreted. Most of them were grave robbers. How pitiful. Hiss hiss. A creepy sound came from afar. The aura was getting closer and closer. Just as Lin Muyu turned around a stone wall, a spicy smell suddenly hit him in the face. He almost subconsciously raised his dragon blood shield, and with a poof sound, the juice that shot toward him bounced back onto the stone wall. However, the stone wall actually began to melt. Damn, what kind of poison was this? It was 10,000 times more poisonous than the poison of the gourd flower. Turning around, Lin Muyu was directly shocked by the golden light. A few meters away, a giant python raised its head and looked at him. It was a giant python with golden scales all over its body, and there were 12 golden lines and 4 silver lines on its head. This python was also recorded in the Book of 10,000 Beasts. A golden thread python, a 12,400-year-old golden thread python. Come to think of it, when it was regarded as the holy beast of the king's tomb, it had already lived for 8,000 years. Hiss. The golden thread python's body moved and suddenly opened its bloody mouth to swallow Lin Muyu. The python's movement was very fast as lightning. But Lin Muyu was not like those weak chickens on the ground. At this moment he was already a holy king. He gently waved the dragon blood battle shield, and with the support of the king's fighting flame he blasted away the python's head with a bang. His figure quickly rushed over, and in an instant his 2 martial souls instantly fused and he took out the great treasure sword. The 7 luminaries' celestial sword circled around the star's sword, and it landed heavily on the golden thread python's body. Bang! After all, it was a 12,400-year-old spirit beast, and its scales were very hard. But it could not withstand the sharpness of a substandard artifact, let alone a substandard artifact that was supported by the great treasure sword. The first slash directly split the scales and blood splattered everywhere. Although it did not cut into the golden thread python's body, it had already broken through the surface of its body. Mu, what's going on inside? Tang Xiaoxi's voice came from outside. Lin Muyu's attack succeeded and he quickly retreated. At the same time he said loudly, "It's nothing. Wait for me to deal with it, then you can come in." Hiss. The golden thread python flew into a rage out of humiliation. It suddenly opened its mouth and venom filled the sky. Lin Muyu steeled her heart and suddenly shook her arms. The king's combat flame on her body flew out, forming a substantial qi domain. Bang bang bang. The venom was reflected back. Suddenly, a hissing sound could be heard, and the venom was corroding the golden thread python's scales. The opportunity had come. She used the star step of falling star step for the second time. Her figure flashed, and in the next moment, the great treasure sword wrapped around the star's sword landed heavily on the golden thread python's vital spot for the second time. Bang! The spirit beast's protective aura was completely shattered, and the star's sword had already cut about 10 centimeters into the golden thread python's flesh. Hiss hiss! The giant python howled and its tail suddenly swept across like a sharp knife. Lin Muyu did not give way. She spun her body and the dragon blood battle shield met the python head-on. With a loud bang, the golden thread python's tail was peeled off inch by inch. The disparity in strength was too great. It was completely not a match for Lin Muyu. The third opportunity to attack came. The star's sword in Lin Muyu's hand fell heavily. A crisp sound rang out and the golden thread python's cry was cut off. That was because its entire head had been cut off by Lin Muyu's sword. The 7 luminaries' celestial sword martial soul's power even penetrated the ground, shattering all the stone bricks. "Alright, you two can come in." With the crisis resolved, Lin Muyu called for the two to enter. When Tang Xiaoxi and Bai Yin stepped into the first level of the tomb, they were immediately stunned. A 12,400-year-old golden thread python was dealt with by you in 2 or 3 moves? Tang Xiaoxi asked in astonishment. Yes, in 3 moves. Lin Muyu was proud of herself. Isn't my big sword powerful? Yes, you didn't even give me a chance to show off. Tang Xiaoxi's small mouth curled up and she looked unhappy. Bai Yin cupped his fists. Commander, I will follow you for sure. Lin Muyu, after cutting open the golden thread python's head and taking its spirit stone, its beast spirit was slowly dissipating. It was a pity that Lin Muyu, Tang Xiaoxi and Bai Yin had not reached the peak of this level, and refining the beast spirit was not beneficial. Looking at the white bones on the ground, Tang Xiaoxi stuck out her tongue. It seems that the mercenaries who visited the village chief's house 7 years ago have become delicious food for the golden thread python. But after today the Huai royal tomb will definitely become a paradise for grave robbers. In a sense we really owe Xiaoyin. Don't worry. Lin Muyu patted her shoulder. We came to the Huai royal tomb with sincerity and asked Ancestor Qin Bing to teach us the art of engraving. I believe he won't be angry. That may not be true. Tang Xiaoxi burst into laughter and Lin Muyu had goosebumps. Would Qin Bing be angry? She would have to ask him himself. At this time Bai Yin had already pushed aside a floor tile and found the entrance to the next level of the Huai royal tomb. A strong gust of wind blew and Bai Yin couldn't help but take a few steps back. Looking at the dark entrance he looked hesitant. What the hell is this? So strong. Bai Yin was only at the heaven realm and they couldn't let him take this risk. Lin Muyu walked forward. I'll go in first, you guys just follow me. Yes, Commander. After a moment of silence, Lin Muyu gathered the dragon blood shield again. Holding the shield in his left hand and the stellar sword in his right, he walked down step by step. As expected, the wind was very hot and there was a dense aura surging in the spiritual pulse technique. Confused him. The aura wasn't too strong but it was very dense. What was it? The ground was rotten and he could see pieces of charred bones. It seemed that there were people who went around the golden thread python to enter the second level of the tomb, but the result was the same. They all died. Holding the sword he walked forward step by step. Tang Xiaoxi followed closely behind, while Bai Yin held the steel sword and looked around vigilantly. Buzz buzz. Suddenly he heard a faint sound like a bee flapping its wings. What's that? The stellar sword spun slowly and suddenly, a blood-red hornet could be seen flying not too far away. This hornet looked extremely terrifying, and there was even a flame aura lingering around its body. Lin Muyu's eyesight was extraordinary, and she could clearly see that there was a golden line on the hornet's head. Heavens, a 1,000-year wasp? A queen wasp? Be careful, it's a ghost wasp, it's poisonous. Bai Yin hurriedly warned. Ghost wasp? Lin Muyu's attack was extremely fast. With a sweep of the stellar sword, the ghost bee was instantly cut into two. He sneered, what ghost bee? It's simply trash. Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful eyes were filled with worry, and she stretched out her hand to point ahead and said, Moo Moo, don't be in such a hurry to brag. Quickly look over there, there's so many ghost bees. Chapter 481. The dark tunnel was filled with buzzing sounds. The dense and powerful aura from the spirit pulse technique surged. In an instant Lin Muyu felt her scalp go numb. She hurriedly took a few steps back with her sword and shielded Tang Xiaoxi and Bai Yin behind her. What should we do? Ghost bees are afraid of fire. Tang Xiaoxi said. Lin Muyu shouted and instantly raised the power of the king's fighting flame to its peak. She pushed her palm forward and suddenly, a golden wall of the gourd cut off the entire tunnel. The king's fighting flame surrounding the wall of the gourd turned into high-temperature flames. When the ghost bees flew over, they could only hit the wall of the gourd. Then their wings were burnt by the king's fighting flame, and they fell to the ground screaming in pain. After all, they were 1,000-year-old ghost bees with strong vitality. The king's fighting flame could only burn their wings, but it could not kill them. Just like that, the wall of the gourd stood in the tunnel like a fire net. Tens of thousands of ghost bees buzzed over, creating blood-red sparks on the wall. It was a spectacular sight. Tang Xiaoxi and Bai Yin were both dumbfounded. This was the strength of a Saint King Realm Master. Facing the attack of tens of thousands of ghost bees, Lin Muyu was actually able to remain undefeated. If it had been Lin Muyu before she reached the Saint Realm, she would have been stung into a pig's head. Soon their noses were filled with a burning smell. Tens of thousands of ghost bees that had lost their legs and wings were lying on the ground. They were like silkworms that had lost the ability to move, but they still made squeaking sounds. Their bodies were also writhing in pain, but only death awaited them. The charred bones in the second underground floor of the Huai King's tomb were probably the work of these ghost bees. Not only did they sting people, but they also ate human flesh. Not only that, but they also burned the bones after eating the human flesh. There was nothing they wouldn't do. Scope. Lin Muyu held her stellar sword and stomped over. Instantly, her battle boots crushed the bodies of countless ghost bees. Poo piu piu, sounds could be heard as juice splattered out. It was extremely disgusting. Bai Yin furrowed his brows and followed along. The feeling of stepping on the ghost bee felt even better. Tang Xiaoxi, on the other hand, was much more reserved. With a light cry, she summoned her fire fox martial spirit. Raging flames surrounded the soles of her feet as she followed Lin Muyu. She really didn't want to deal with these ghost bees. The passageway of the tomb chamber was very dark. Lin Muyu raised the stellar sword and condensed the flame power around the blade to illuminate the surroundings. The three of them walked very slowly. They saw that the walls on both sides of the tomb were engraved with characters and murals. As they got closer, Lin Muyu read slowly. According to the Emperor's decree, the fortune of the human world varies from person to person. Prince Huai Qingbing was honest, loved his people, and was loyal to his country. Stop reading. Tang Xiaoxi held his arm and said, It's all praising the owner of the tomb, it's worthless. Yes. Bai Yin sniffed with all his might and said, Commander Princess Shi, do the two of you smell an extremely strange smell? It's a fragrance that makes one feel extremely fresh. Lin Muyu also sniffed carefully and said, I think there is. It's right in front. Yes, let's go take a look. According to the ancient records, King Huai's tomb was built on the 5th floor. We must find the entrance to the 3rd floor. As they continued to walk forward, the stone walls on both sides of the passageway of the tomb chamber had some cracks. If they weren't wrong, they should be cracks caused by earthquakes that happened thousands of years ago. However, it was worth rejoicing that these earthquakes didn't destroy the entire tomb chamber. Otherwise, Lin Muyu and the others would definitely have come for nothing. At this moment, the depths of the tomb chamber reflected a white light under the radiance of the stellar sword. Lin Muyu took a few quick steps forward and immediately discovered small white flowers growing on the stone walls. Each flower had 5 petals, and there was dew on the petals as well as rays of holy light. Lin Muyu couldn't help but be ecstatic and said, It's a soul flower. Soul flower? Tang Xiaoxi said in shock. What a familiar name. Of course it's familiar. Lin Muyu said happily, the soul flower is a level 10 herb. It's recorded in all kinds of medicine books, and the soul flower is also the most holy thing in the world. It's said that it can cure hundreds of poisons. My God, the most holy flower in the world actually grows in such a filthy place. It's simply unbelievable. Bai Yin said, maybe the soul flower grew here to suppress the corpse energy in the depths of the tomb chamber. Corpse energy? Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. She said, Bai Yin, you bastard, don't scare me. What corpse energy? Do you think there are zombies here? Bai Yin malevolently smiled. Could it be? Commander, after cultivating in the Shattered Cauldron realm for so many years, you really haven't seen a soulless person? What is a soulless person? Lin Muyu asked while collecting the soul flower. Bai Yin explained, it's a zombie, a corpse without a soul, but it can move and absorb the essence of humans. There are many records of this in ancient books, especially in some tombs deep in the mountains where there is no one to take care of them. The Yin energy is too strong and it's extremely easy for a corpse to not decompose for a long time. Then the corpse will absorb the Yin energy and become a zombie. As for this place, Bai Yin frowned and said, to be honest, this tomb is located in the shadow of a pond, so the Yin energy here is unusually strong. Moreover, Huai Wang Qinbing was a cultivator when he was alive, and he was unable to reach the divine realm. His resentment must be unusually strong, so the possibility of him turning into a zombie is very high. Tang Xiaoxi was shocked. She grabbed Lin Muyu's white robe with one hand and held the nation-suppressing whip with the other. Flames lingered on the whip, illuminating the dark tunnel behind her. She was frightened. All right, shut up. Lin Muyu glared at Bai Yin and said, you've almost scared our princess Shi to the point of losing her ability to fight. If we really encounter something later, you'll have to deal with it alone. Bai Yin grinned. This subordinate knows his mistake. I won't say it anymore, I won't say it anymore. Not long after, Lin Muyu had collected all the soul flowers along the way and put them into her Qianquan bag. However, when the three of them arrived at the end of the tunnel, they were stunned again. There was actually a stone coffin erected on the stone wall at the end of the tunnel. The stone coffin was covered in moss and there were even blackworms crawling on it. It made one's hair stand on end. What the hell? Bai Yin gritted his teeth and said, a stone coffin guarding the entrance. It seems that there is indeed something strange in the depths of Huai King's tomb, and he moved closer to take a look and said, the words on the stone coffin are reversed. This means that the stone coffin was placed upside down. Heaven and earth are reversed and the universe is reversed. A person who can use this kind of curse is definitely not a good person. There's someone in this stone coffin, and it's someone who guarded Huai King Qinbing's tomb. Moreover, he's an evil person. Otherwise, Qinbing wouldn't have allowed him to be buried with him. Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes and said, you mean, the person in the stone coffin might have already turned into a zombie? Isn't it possible? Bai Yin stretched out his hand and gently wiped the bottom of the stone coffin. Instantly, his fingers were filled with black blood. He couldn't help but frown and say, he's already turned into a zombie. Zhou Lord Commander, we must kill this zombie, or else we won't be able to go to the third floor. How do we kill him? Open the coffin lid, pull him out and chop him off. What if he retaliates? He will definitely retaliate. Move aside. Yes. Bai Yin and Tang Xiaoxi retreated a few steps, but Lin Muyu raised the star's sword. With a shout, the two martial souls broke out of her body and rapidly fused into the seven luminaries' immortal sword. Under Lin Muyu's control, the seven luminaries' immortal sword, a super grade 1 martial soul, was condensed into a light blade that was only 3 meters long. She added it to the star's sword. She raised the blade from afar and starlight appeared. Energy seeped into the blade. Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice, it's better to strike first than to strike later. Cut him in two with one sword. Who cares if he's a zombie or not? Bang! The sword slashed horizontally across the stone coffin. The moment the stone coffin collapsed, the sword chi swept past the thing inside. However, the person inside the stone coffin was actually enveloped in a layer of golden aura, forcibly blocking Lin Muyu's attack. Roar! With a low roar that sounded like a wild beast, the thing inside the stone coffin leaped out with all 4 limbs on the ground. It did not look like a zombie in the movies at all, but more like a wild beast. Its eyes were scarlet, and the ancient general's battle armor on its body had already decayed, leaving only pieces of armor hanging on its body. It looked neither fish nor fowl. Moreover, this person's body was covered in green hair as if moldy. A tyrannical power seeped out of its body, and its aura was actually not inferior to that of Lin Muyu. Roar! It let out another low roar and leaped towards Lin Muyu. It raised its left arm and with a blood-red trail, it directly smashed towards Lin Muyu's shoulder. Clang! The indestructible star's sword blocked it, and the monster's arm was actually not cut off. Only some green blood splashed out, but at the same time the golden aura around its body became denser. Bai Yin raised his sword and struck from the side, but it did not slash into the monster's corpse. He was also smart, and with a flash of absolute step he dodged far away. With a cold expression he said, "My dear mother, it's a Vajra corpse." This person had cultivated the Vajra protection divine art passed down by Xuanji Buddha when he was alive. Where did all these names come from? Lin Muyu slightly raised her left arm backward, and the 7 luminaries' profound energy surged. She sneered, "I don't care if it's a Vajra protection divine art or not. Anyway, it's going to be destroyed." 5 luminaries, 8 wastelands annihilation. Bang! The mighty profound energy directly hit the Vajra corpse's chest, and immediately, a corner of the golden aura was damaged. The zombie howled miserably and retreated a few steps, but it swept forward again like lightning. Its arms spread out and directly hugged Lin Muyu's left arm. It opened its bloody mouth and bit down. Lin Muyu could not help but laugh. "Want to eat me? I'll break your teeth." The 7 luminaries' holy gourd's dragon blood battle shield and the true dragon arms aura gathered together, making the arm's rigidity one of the best. Crack! The Vajra corpse bit down, and as expected 2 fangs flew out. Lin Muyu felt a fierce flame aura gathering behind her, and in a flash she hid behind Tang Xiaoxi. Tang Xiaoxi raised both of her palms, and she had already transformed into 9 tails. The 9 flame tails swayed slowly behind her, and suddenly, a star-offering seal landed on the Vajra corpse's body. Bang! This time, the Vajra protection divine art around the Vajra corpse's body was completely destroyed. A figure flashed by, and Bai Yin's steel sword slashed straight through. Immediately, the Vajra corpse's head flew, and it fell straight to the ground. "Commander, the Vajra corpse has been killed. Can this be recorded in my merit book?" Bai Yin asked respectfully. "Stealing a kill, shameless," Lin Muyu said lightly. Tang Xiaoxi. Chapter 482. With a wave of her hand, all the insects on the half-coffin lid flew out, and the stone door at the bottom of the coffin opened automatically. It was a dark passage to the 3rd floor of the Huai royal tomb. "Wait a minute." Tang Xiaoxi suddenly pulled Lin Muyu and then raised her palm. Her flame power swept through the moss and dust at the bottom of the coffin, and suddenly an ancient book appeared there. Lin Muyu hurriedly picked it up and used her pitiful knowledge of the Broken Cauldron realm to read it and said, "Diamond protection body?" "Yes." Tang Xiaoxi said happily, "It's the ultimate skill passed down from the 9 great god emperors Xuanji Buddha. Diamond protection body. Great, it looks like it's the complete version, really good." "Complete version, what do you mean?" Lin Muyu looked puzzled. Tang Xiaoxi said slowly, "Most of the diamond protection body books that have been passed down for tens of thousands of years are incomplete. The diamond protection body has a total of 9 heavens, and each layer of defense is stronger than the previous one. However, most of the books collected by the book collectors on the continent only have 1 to 3 heavens, and they are extremely expensive. Mu, quickly take a look at how many heavens are recorded in this diamond protection body book." "Yes." Lin Muyu opened the book and found that this book's paper was actually not broken for thousands of years, and should be made of special materials. Moreover, the handwriting on the book was very clear, and when she flipped to the end she could see the handwriting of the 9th heavens. She couldn't help but smile. Sure enough, there are a total of 9 heavens, and this is the complete version. Tang Xiaoxi was elated and said with a smile, "Mu, just for this diamond protection body book, we didn't come in vain. But it's a pity that the training requirement for the diamond protection body is a male body, and a female body can't withstand such a vast amount of Xian energy. So you should keep this diamond protection body book and don't underestimate it. For tens of thousands of years, the diamond protection body is one of the strongest defensive martial arts in the world. Maybe it's number 1. Lin Muyu nodded. Although she was known to have a strong defense, she still relied on her martial spirit and its ability to defend. The real defensive martial art was only third-rate, like the green rock armor. Cough cough, not to be disrespectful to Chu Chu, but the green rock armor's defense was indeed very limited. Now that she got this diamond protection body book, it was like coal in snow. At the side, Bai Yin had a resentful expression. When Lin Muyu saw this, she couldn't help but smile. Bai Yin, don't be sad. After we return to the temple, I will get someone to make a copy of this diamond protection body book. Feng Jixing, Qin Yan, Wei Chou, and you will each have a copy. The few of us will first cultivate it and then personally pass it down to someone we trust. I'm not the kind of person who treasures my own things, so don't worry. Bai Yin turned pale with fright. Commander, you're really willing to share this diamond protection body book? Why not? Lin Muyu smiled. Only when all of you become stronger will the empire be considered to have become stronger. The respect on Bai Yin's face became even stronger as he cupped his fists and said, My lord, in the history of the continent, the more powerful cultivators do not pass down their martial arts to outsiders. There are also many requirements for disciples, and they will not pass down the complete martial arts book. But my lord has obtained such an unparalleled absolute art, and is actually willing to share it. Bai Yin admires you. Stop flattering me. Let's go to the third floor. Yes. After stepping into the third floor, the passageway of the tomb chamber was still gloomy, and there were many soul flowers growing on the stone walls. As a medicine deity-level alchemist, Lin Muyu naturally would not let go of such a good opportunity to collect level 10 medicinal herbs. She did not let go of a single flower and put them all into her cosmos bag. Tang Xiaoxi was a little surprised and asked with a smile, Although soul flowers are very precious, this place is gloomy and terrifying, and yet you did not let go of a single one. Speaking of which, why did you collect so many soul flowers? Xiaoxi, do you still remember the stony scale patients in the periphery of the Huai royal tomb? I remember. From the day they fell ill, their bodies would constantly be replaced by stone scales, and their movements would also become slow. They could only survive like animals until one day their entire bodies turned into stone. That kind of life is worse than death. I think that the stony scale is a kind of illness and also a kind of poison. If I can refine a level 10 detoxification divine water, I should be able to help them return to human form. Really? It should be possible, I will try. Hum. Tang Xiaoxi was a kind girl and immediately gave Lin Muyu a hug and said with a smile, My Mu is the best. Bai Yin touched his nose, feeling that the two in front of him were already showing off their love, and did not care about the feelings of a single dog like him at all. It was simply inhumane. Although the corridor on the third floor was gloomy and cold, Lin Muyu could still sense an extremely evil aura lingering around with her spirit pulse technique. The distance was too close, and the spirit pulse technique could not determine the specific location. Not long before, there was the sound of gurgling water. There is actually water deep underground. Bai Yin frowned. Lin Muyu looked up, and on the stone wall there were stone statues of Taotai. These ancient beasts had ferocious expressions, and they looked in the direction of the tomb with hostility, as if they were guarding the stone tomb. However, they were only stone statues, and although they could be used to scare people, they did not have any real meaning. After turning around a stone wall, there was an underground lake in front of them, flowing unceasingly. There is no way forward. Lin Muyu said calmly. Bai Yin tightly gripped the steel sword and said, Maybe the tomb was destroyed, so the underground water flowed in, and in the end the passage to the fourth floor was drowned. What do we do? Tang Xiaoxi was at a loss. How would I know? Bai Yin said, Then we can only swim to the fourth floor if we are not willing to give up. We cannot give up. Lin Muyu clenched her fists and said, I came here for the Divine Seal Master Qin Bing's Divine Seal book. How can I be satisfied with a diamond protection book? Tang Xiaoxi laughed. Then let's continue diving. Oh. Lin Muyu waved her hand and squinted at the bottom of the lake and said, The lake water here is different from the surface, and there is something waiting for us in the lake water. What is it? Bai Yin could not help but tremble. I don't know, but the aura is not too weak, we can test it. Tang Xiaoxi said worriedly, Then Mu, you have to be careful. Don't worry, I have the diamond protection body. Tui, you haven't even cultivated the diamond protection body yet, and you are already bragging. Lin Muyu held onto the long sword step by step, and when the lake water wet her pants, a powerful aura suddenly surged in from afar, and ripples appeared on the surface of the water. As expected, the things at the bottom of the lake were not good things. At the same time, she hurriedly turned around and at the same time, activated her battle armor and dragon blood shield. In the darkness, a ferocious black fish about 30 centimeters long rushed out of the water and opened its sharp teeth to bite Lin Muyu's index finger in the air. But with a bang, the fish's teeth were broken, but Lin Muyu actually felt a faint pain. This fish was so strong and its teeth were so sharp. Gotcha! The stellar sword flashed and the fish was cut in half, but its body was still jumping around on the ground, and it seemed that it would not die for a while. Tang Xiaoxi was dumbfounded. What a scary fish, ghost teeth fish. Bai Yin said with a fierce look in his eyes. It is said that a group of ghost teeth fish can eat a black tortoise in an instant. A black tortoise. He looked at the ghost teeth fish on the ground that had been cut in half, and suddenly found 2 golden lines on the fish's head. He couldn't help but tremble. It is actually a 2,000-year-old spirit beast, scary. At this time, one ghost teeth fish after another jumped out of the water, went straight to Lin Muyu and pretended to eat every inch of his flesh. A group of flying fish in the air. Lin Muyu suddenly became excited. What a great opportunity it was. He hurriedly said, Xiaoxi Bai Yin, back off. Let me handle it. It's time to show real swordsmanship. The stellar sword was dazzling and the next moment Lin Muyu entered a crazy state of sword attack. He turned around and waved dozens of times, roaring and cursing, and the sword light slashed fiercely. Suddenly, there were only shadows and sword flowers in front of him, and at the same time, the bodies of the ghost teeth fish fell to the ground. It was like an enhanced version of Fruit Ninja. Tang Xiaoxi's view of the world had been turned upside down. She held her forehead and said, Mu, this idiot. Bai Yin was shocked. It was the first time that he had seen Lin Muyu attack with such a fast sword. The lethality and magnificence of it were really not to be underestimated. It was simply the best in the world. Soon there were no more ghost teeth fish coming to seek death. However, the lake was still rippling and there were still many ghost teeth fish waiting to attack. Lin Muyu shook his arm and the blade vibrated, scattering the blood of the ghost teeth fish. He raised his hand and sheathed the sword, looking very handsome. Then what do we do now? We still can't go. Tang Xiaoxi said. Bai Yin narrowed his eyes and said, Why don't we use fire? With the king's combat flame, we can definitely evaporate the lake water. When that happens, the ghost teeth fish will be like ducks that can't swim and naturally won't be a threat. Can we? Tang Xiaoxi didn't know if this idea was reliable. Lin Muyu shook her head. Oh. Why? Bai Yin was a little confused. Lin Muyu explained, the depths of the tomb are originally isolated from the outside world, and the ventilation effect is not good. The oxygen level is far lower than the level on the surface. If we burn the lake water dry, not to mention where the steam will go, just the carbon dioxide produced will be enough to poison us, so it's better not to try. Carbon dioxide? Bai Yin was stunned. Lin Muyu patted his shoulder and said, Bai Yin, you haven't studied much, so you don't understand this principle. It's not your fault. Bai Yin readily accepted the advice and cupped his fists. Thank you for your guidance, Commander. I will study hard. Lin Muyu almost wanted to wish him a smooth exam, but she held back and said, Xiaoxi, although the ghost teeth fish are powerful, they are not absolutely powerful. How about this? Bai Yin will stay outside, and the two of us will use our Saint Domain pressure to separate the lake water and enter the 4th layer. Amen. Tang Xiaoxi nodded. Chapter 483. Buzz Buzz. A visible domain aura condensed around her body, reaching a radius of about 1 meter. It was probably only enough to protect herself from the attacks of the ghost Fong fish. Tang Xiaoxi, who was beside Lin Muyu, had also entered the 9-tailed transformation state. It seemed that when she transformed into a 9-tailed demon fox, her body would also undergo some slight changes. For example, her breasts were more prominent, and the slender and elegant girl had a bit more wild beauty, which made her even more charming. Lin Muyu glanced back at Bai Yin and said, Wait for us here. Xiaoxi and I will return after we find Qin Bing's body and treasures. Understood? Yes, Commander. Bai Yin cupped his fists and said, This subordinate will not leave until the commander returns. All right. Lin Muyu turned around and stepped into the lake. The domain pressure completely crushed the surrounding water within a meter. Immediately the ghost fong fish were unhappy and hit the outer layer of the domain pressure again and again, making ping 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 sounds as if they were hitting tempered glass. Lin Muyu's speed was very fast, and she quickly rushed to the depths of the lake with Tang Xiaoxi. The domain pressure to resist the attacks of the ghost fong fish consumed a lot of fighting qi. Neither of them dared to delay, and when they reached the depths of the lake, they broke a layer of stone and quickly walked up. They had already entered the fourth layer of the tomb, and were only one step away from Qin Bing's burial place. Whoosh! The moment the two of them walked out of the lake, countless ghost fong fish rushed out of the water behind them. For a moment, Lin Muyu's obsessive-compulsive disorder acted up again. She turned around with a face full of excitement and pulled out the star's sword. Countless sword lights burst out and she slashed wildly. After dealing with the ghost teeth fish that had jumped onto the shore, he went straight to the passageway of the tomb without stopping. He could smell the fragrance from afar. There were still soul flowers here. He had collected all of them and piled them up in the different space of the cosmos sack. He didn't know where he could find such good stuff in the future. Moreover, soul flowers were very valuable in Lanyan City. If anyone could take out 0.5 kilogram of soul flowers, the transaction price would be at least 10,000 Jinin coins. If they were refined into potions, the price would be even higher. After all, the detoxifying divine water could not only detoxify but also cure some difficult and complicated diseases. Those rich people lived a luxurious life all day long and contracted all kinds of strange diseases. The detoxifying divine water was simply a life-saving medicine for them. While Lin Muyu was happily collecting the soul flowers, the spiritual pulse technique suddenly shook, and a very strong breath was rushing over. He hurriedly stopped, pulled out the star's sword and instantly raised the king's fighting flame to the peak state. He said with a slightly pale face, "Xiaoxi, be careful, something is coming." Although Tang Xiaoxi didn't practice the spiritual pulse technique, she was very sensitive to the breath. She quickly entered the state of the nine-tailed demon fox, and the fire god seal appeared in her palm ready to attack. Roar! The roar of a beast and a burning feeling came from the passage of the tomb. It was a spirit beast of the fire attribute. In the blink of an eye, a giant beast rushed over, its head almost touching the tomb. It was a strange beast covered in flames. Its head was like a camel's, and on its head was a pair of antlers that were surrounded by flames. Its body was bent over and its body was covered in fire scales. Its limbs were like a tiger's and it looked very majestic. It roared at Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi, the two seemingly tiny humans, showing off its majesty. "It's an imperial puppet," Tang Xiaoxi said hurriedly, "an imperial puppet from 15,500 years ago. Oh my god, why is there such an ancient strange beast in this tomb? It's just here to give us spirit stones." Lin Muyu smiled confidently. She activated the dragon blood battle shield and the wall of the gourd at the same time, and then the 7 luminaries fairy gourd quickly disintegrated and merged with the god binding chains to form a big treasure sword around the star's sword. Lin Muyu raised the long sword and used the falling star step. Before the imperial puppet could attack, Lin Muyu began to attack. The big treasure sword carried the Xian energy of the star's sword and swept toward the imperial puppet's neck. Roar! The imperial puppet roared ferociously, but it didn't defend at all. It waved its sharp claws at the big treasure sword. Bang! Sparks and stardust flew everywhere. Lin Muyu was pushed back and hit the wall, but an obvious sword mark appeared on the imperial puppet's claws. Blood flowed out. In the first collision, Lin Muyu won. A 15,500 years old spirit beast was strong, but Lin Muyu's martial soul was a new martial soul created by the fusion of a super grade 1 martial soul and a first grade martial soul. Its strength was beyond common sense, so it was expected that Lin Muyu had the upper hand. At the back, Tang Xiaoxi took advantage of the moment when Lin Muyu was pushed back to raise her 2 small hands. In an instant, 4 seals landed on the Emperor's puppet's chest: Soul-suppressing seal, Samsara seal, Cosmic star seal and Divine array seal. The Emperor's puppet's protective upstanding chi shattered into pieces of energy fragments. As the spirit beast's outer layer of defense weakened, its fate of defeat was sealed. Roar! The Emperor puppet roared angrily, and the spiritual power in its body quickly leaked out. The flames suddenly surged, forming an indiscriminate fire attack in all directions. Lin Muyu hurriedly dashed in front of Tang Xiaoxi. She raised her left hand and the dragon blood battle shield, the gourd wall and the true dragon arms, 3 layers of defense, directly withstanding the monarch puppet's attack. This monarch puppet must have gone mad to unleash such a powerful attack, burning the surrounding stone walls red. Many of the stone walls were even torn apart, and the entire chamber was on the verge of collapse. Damn it, get rid of it as soon as possible. Lin Muyu jumped up and held the sword in her right hand. The big treasure sword was surrounded by the light of the 5 mountains descending from the heavens. It was an attack from the sky. The imperial puppet seemed to realize the power of this attack. It quickly raised its head and flames gathered, forming a wall of fire defense similar to the wall of a gourd. Bang! The sword fell and the flames burst out. However, the imperial puppet did not expect the mysteriousness of a human's cultivation method. A golden light directly separated from the big treasure sword and fell down. Poochie! Blood splattered. On the surface, Lin Muyu's attack was the 5 mountains descending from the heavens, but there was a light splitting slash hidden in it. This sword was about to split open the imperial puppet's skull. Not only that, she raised her left hand and 2 little magic sonar blades flew out. The invisible attack directly pierced into the imperial puppet's eyes, and directly blinded it. The imperial puppet did not stop using dirty tricks and it took all of them. At this time the imperial puppet's heart was filled with a million curses, but what could it do? With its strength, it was already a bit strained to fight 2 Holy King level powerhouses. Moreover, these 2 people were anomalies. One was a monster with 2 martial souls, and the other was a beautiful girl who was a monster. She was the legendary 9-tailed demon fox, an existence that could kill people. In the end, a few rounds of Fire God's seal blasted out, and the imperial puppet was forced to retreat. Lin Muyu held her sword horizontally, and faced the imperial puppet's flame attack. With a kacha sound, the scales were broken and the imperial puppet's throat was directly cut. Blood splattered out and the imperial puppet retreated a few steps, and with a cry, it fell to the ground. It produced a beast spirit, and its cry was a little resentful, as if it was saying that dying in the hands of this abnormal powerhouse was worth it. Done. What a piece of trash. Lin Muyu's face was full of calmness. This calmness came from strong confidence, and at this time in the eyes of Tang Xiaoxi, it was as if the whole world was here. Tang Xiaoxi stood there quietly. She simply loved this shameless and incomparably powerful guy in front of her. She leaped onto the imperial puppet's body, cut open its head, and took out the spirit stone and put it in her Qiankuan bag. It was another big harvest. A 15,500-year-old fire attribute spirit stone was still quite valuable. After all, there were many people who practiced the law of fire, and such a spirit stone was enough for Tang Xiaoxi to break through to the Holy Realm. As for the beast spirit, it was still a pity. Neither Lin Muyu nor Tang Xiaoxi needed it. They would only refine the beast spirit when they were about to break through. Otherwise, there would be no chance for their martial soul to absorb new abilities. That was simply a cruel treatment for cultivators. The 5th floor, the real burial place of Huai King Qinbing, was right in front of them. As long as they pushed open the stone door, they could go to the 5th floor. However, Lin Muyu was a little nervous. After all, this trip was equivalent to digging up the Qin family's ancestral grave. It was fine if Qin Yin didn't blame her, but if Qin Bing really turned into a corpse, should she kill him or not? Somehow she felt that Qin Jin was watching from above, and this didn't seem too good. However, for the sake of the high-grade engraved ancient books, she could only thicken her skin and go. Rustle, rustle. She slowly pushed the stone door. The moment it opened, an extremely stinky wind blew over. It had been 4,000 years and it was still so smelly. Could it be that it hadn't completely rotted away? Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel nervous. He had a feeling that it was definitely not good. Tang Xiaoxi was so scared that her little face turned pale. She followed closely behind Lin Muyu, constantly muttering in her heart, "Prince Huai, Xiaoxi didn't mean to offend you. Actually, when Mu invited me to rob the grave, I rejected it. If you're unhappy, don't look for Xiaoxi and Mu. Go look for Bai Yin, who's staying on the 3rd floor. That guy looks shifty-eyed and doesn't look like a good person." At this moment, if Lin Muyu knew that Tang Xiaoxi was thinking this way, she would definitely laugh herself to death. On the 3rd floor, a chilly breeze slowly blew past, sending chills down one's spine. Bai Yin hugged his legs and sat in a corner of the stone wall, watching the ghost-toothed fish jumping happily in the distance. His face was ashen. This place was eerie. Although they had already killed the ghost bees, who knew if there would be more? Also, would the mummy on the second floor come back to life? At the thought of this, Bai Yin was so scared that tears almost fell from his eyes. The commander and princess, she were too heartless, leaving him in such a terrifying and lonely place. He hugged his knees and trembled as he sat there alone, like an aggrieved and afraid Scottish fold cat. Chapter 484. The eerie, chilly wind made one's skin ache. When Lin Muyu slowly walked into the deepest part of the royal tomb with the star sword in hand, she had already condensed her battle chi into her armor. Stars illuminated the path on both sides. Just like the upper levels, the walls were already covered with ancient carvings, and there were also stalks of soul flowers growing here. However, this time Lin Muyu didn't go to pick the soul flowers. Instead, she looked at a row of coffins not far away. That's right, there was a row of coffins placed at the corner of the path. Behind each coffin was a bronze guard, and the weapons in their hands were actually still intact after thousands of years. Could they all be zombies? Tang Xiaoxi narrowed her beautiful eyes and asked worriedly. No. Lin Muyu shook her head. They're not zombies. He couldn't sense any auras, but he still had to confirm who these coffins belonged to. Otherwise, if they really were zombies and attacked from behind, it would be very difficult to deal with them. Rustle. When Lin Muyu opened the lid of a coffin, Tang Xiaoxi didn't dare to look inside at all. Lin Muyu used the light from the star's sword to look inside. The corpse inside had completely decomposed and only a skeleton was left. However, from the clothes it was wearing, it seemed to be a woman, and a woman of very high status. Apart from clothes and the corpse, there were also jade stones and jewelry in the coffin. After opening another coffin, it was still a woman. There were 12 coffins filled with women in a row. Could they all be Prince Huai's concubines? Tang Xiaoxi asked. They should be. Lin Muyu nodded and said righteously, Prince Huai really knows how to enjoy life. He has 12 wives and I'm surprised he can bear it. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but laugh. She teased, you make it sound like it's real. If you were also conferred the title of Prince Huai in the future, I don't believe that you would only stay with one person and not take concubines. If all men are different. Really? Lin Muyu looked straight at Tang Xiaoxi and said, if a woman can make a man love her deeply, love her with all his heart, then this man's world will not be able to enter other women. You can't look at things too one-sidedly. Alright, you're too good at talking. I can't win against you, but isn't it a bit inappropriate to discuss this issue in a place like this? Yes. Lin Muyu raised her stellar sword and lit up the distance. At the same time, an extremely strong fluctuation came from the spirit meridian technique. That direction was the main hall of the tomb owner. As expected, this trip was definitely not that simple. Her boots stepped on the cold stone floor as Lin Muyu walked in front. The aura of the spirit meridian technique became stronger and stronger, even stronger than the 15,500-year-old imperial puppet. This was enough to prove that the opponents here were stronger than the imperial puppet. Thus, Lin Muyu raised her king's fighting flame to its peak state without hesitation. Under the illumination of the stellar sword, the pillars on both sides of the walkway suddenly flickered with light with a schwa. It seemed that a luminous gem embedded in the stone pillar had been activated. Immediately after, the gems on the two closest pillars also began to flicker and spread out like ripples. In the blink of an eye, all of the pillars in the main hall of the tomb blossomed with light, brightly illuminating the entire underground world. Look over there. Tang Xiaoxi reached out and pointed. In the distance, in the center of the main hall, there was a very exquisite and dignified coffin. It was probably made of pure gold, and the sides of the coffin were full of cryptic and abstruse characters that she could not understand at all. Moreover, there were two huge golden copper rings, one at the front and one at the back of the coffin. They looked like pull rings, but she did not know what they were. However, what shocked Lin Muyu the most was that there was a person sitting on top of the coffin. It was a white-haired old man sitting cross-legged with his head lowered. He did not say anything, and on his lap was a jade flute. Buzz buzz buzz. Tang Xiaoxi was very nervous. The 9-section whip in her hand also began to emit a fiery red fighting aura. It looked like it was going to attack at any time. Lin Muyu also felt that there was a life aura and energy fluctuation in this old man's body. Although this life aura was very weak, it was still there. Is he alive or dead? Tang Xiaoxi's voice was a little shaky. Lin Muyu pointed the tip of her sword at the old man. Her two martial souls surged together, and they quickly disintegrated into a big treasure sword. She shouted in a low voice, "Who are you? Why are you entrenched in the Huaiwang tomb?" The old man slowly raised his head, but it was a hideous and terrifying face, like a corpse that had been dead for countless years. He laughed cruelly. "You came to King Huai's tomb without the permission of the tomb owner, and you dare to question me like this? You're Huaiwang Qinbing?" Lin Muyu was shocked. The old man laughed. "Huaiwang? His name? Does he deserve it? Qinbing is just a corpse, he is no longer the Huaiwang tomb." "But you," the old man said cautiously, "you have the God-binding lock martial soul, and you even refined and fused with the God-binding lock martial soul. Who are you? Are you from the Qin clan?" Lin Muyu was Qin Jin's godson, so she was naturally from the Qin clan. She smiled. "Yes, is there a problem? Since you are from the Qin clan, then stay here and sleep with Qinbing in this place." "Who are you?" Lin Muyu asked. The old man's eyes were filled with arrogant, murderous intent, and he laughed. "I am someone who controls life and death, someone who can make you wish you were dead. Kid, and that pretty little girl, you can die with Qinbing." As he spoke, the old man leaped backward and he stepped on the power of the sanctuary. He actually stopped in the air for a short while. Holy Heaven Realm. Not only that, but he also played the jade flute. The sound of the flute was harsh and there was no beauty to it. Moreover, the sound of the flute was filled with hostility, and the sound waves swept out in all directions, making Lin Muyu feel irritated for no reason. No, the sound of the flute could confuse one's mind. This old man is not simple. Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice, and she silently chanted the clear heart mantra to maintain the clarity of the spiritual meridian technique. In the blink of an eye, her EC became calm, and Tang Xiaoxi was an expert in using the clear heart mantra. This level of confusion could not do anything to her. However, at this moment, a rustling sound came from the coffin. "What's wrong?" Lin Muyu's eyes turned cold. "Is he going to turn into a zombie?" Tang Xiaoxi waved the nation-suppressing whip in her hand, and she quietly entered the nine-tailed demon fox state. She knew that the battle was imminent, and the old man in front of her was definitely not a good person. How could someone who swore to kill the Qin clan be a good person? Bang! The lid of the coffin suddenly flew up, and the gold that weighed hundreds of kilograms flew into the air and fell heavily on the ground. Some of the patterns on it were ruined and it was really distressing. Inside the coffin, the person wearing the monarch's armor and cloak slowly stood up. His face was half rotten, and his eyes turned to look at Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi, making them shudder. Prince Huai Qinbing had indeed turned into a zombie. This old man was a corpse controller, and it was because of his existence that this tomb was filled with strangeness and death. The old man blew the jade flute and laughed. "Qinbing, do you see that? That brat is a descendant of your Qin clan, and he might even be your direct descendant. Kill to your heart's content, and use the blood of these two people to satisfy the loneliness that you have been sleeping for 4,000 years." Prince Huai slowly raised the sword on his waist. This sword had been buried with him for thousands of years, and when it was unsheathed, it actually shone brightly. Spiritual qi enshrouded the exquisite blade, and it was definitely a good sword. Roar! Qin Bing roared angrily, and his whole body was covered with fighting light. What a guy! This guy was actually a divine heaven realm warrior before he died. Lin Muyu's heart turned cold. This was not going to be easy. Could she and Tang Xiaoxi handle two divine heaven realm warriors? Could it be that they were going to die in this place? Countless thoughts flashed through her mind, but none of them seemed very practical. The poison in the Qiankuan bag had been used up and the clear breeze drunk was gone. Even if there was, it probably wouldn't have any effect on these things that were neither human nor ghost. They might not even be able to breathe, so how could they be poisoned? Ancestor, I'm sorry. The star's sword was filled with the 7 planets' mysterious energy, and Lin Muyu faced it head-on. She used the pressure of the divine realm to break through Qin Bing's domain, and the long sword, with the energy of the 2 planets' demonic dance, shook Qin Bing's blade. Clang! With just one strike, it was obvious who had the upper hand. Even though he had a superb martial soul like the 7 luminaries' celestial sword, he was still slightly weaker than a holy heaven stage cultivator in terms of power. Moreover, Qin Bing was surrounded by 11 pure God-binding chains martial souls. Even after his corpse transformation, he still retained his martial soul and power from when he was alive. Piss off! Qin Bing roared, and his ankle was filled with the power of the divine heaven realm as he kicked heavily into Lin Muyu's abdomen. At the same time, Lin Muyu's three planets calamity also struck Qin Bing's shoulder. Bam! Lin Muyu's abdomen was struck, and her dragon blood battle shield shattered into pieces. She stumbled back several steps and threw up a mouthful of blood in a disheveled manner. She raised her head, only to discover that the power of Qin Bing's divine heaven realm battle armor had completely repelled the third planet calamity's profound energy, and almost didn't inflict any damage. His protective aura was simply too powerful. Tang Xiaoxi, who had transformed into her nine-tailed demon fox form, couldn't bear to watch this any longer. She bit her lip and said, "Mu Qin Bing's corpse is being controlled by that corpse controller. I'll go and kill him. Be careful, he's at the divine heaven realm." All right. The 9-section whip issued a sharp paw sound in the air, and Tang Xiaoxi dashed forward, her flaming tail leaving a blazing light in the air. It was very beautiful, and in the blink of an eye she was fighting with the corpse driver. Lin Muyu took a deep breath. Qin Bing's protective aura was simply too powerful. If she were to unleash her 6 planets tribulation or even her 7 planet star transformation, then it would be fine if she could break through his protective aura. But if she couldn't, then she would most likely suffer a crushing defeat. After all, the 6th and 7th planets were both extremely taxing on one's battle chi and stamina, and if she were to expend too much battle chi without being able to defeat her opponent, then she could very easily fall under his control. At this point, the best course of action was to exhaust Qin Bing's battle chi as quickly as possible. After all, manifesting his suit of battle armor also required energy to do so. She raised her heavenly star sword and unleashed a fierce slash. Sword chi flew forth along with the light from her massive sword before crashing violently into Qin Bing's divine heaven realm calamity chi. She then unleashed a second strike, and each and every one of those strikes was simple, yet extremely fast and didn't contain any special techniques. Meanwhile, Qin Bing let loose an enraged roar as he circulated all of his battle chi, gathering the spirit power of his battle armor wherever Lin Muyu struck. Bang bang bang. A series of explosions rang out within the tomb chamber, and the battle between the two of them was extremely thrilling. Chapter 485. In the short span of 5 minutes, Lin Muyu had unleashed countless strikes, but she had only expended less than 10% of her power. However, Qin Bing was different. Every time he defended, he would summon his suit of battle armor with all his might to prevent Lin Muyu from breaking through his defensive barrier. Just like that, after summoning his suit of battle armor so many times, the intensity of his battle chi had clearly decreased, and even the toughness of his suit of battle armor had decreased significantly. Qin Bing had lost at least 50% of his strength. It was time. Lin Muyu was secretly happy. Tang Xiaoxi, who was on the side, continued to fight with the corpse driver with the fire god seal. The nation-suppressing whip continued to explode in the air, but the corpse driver's strength was not weaker than Tang Xiaoxi's. He was not at a disadvantage. They had to get rid of Qin Bing as soon as possible. Otherwise, Tang Xiaoxi would be in danger if she could not defeat him. Buzz. Starlight surrounded her left arm and Lin Muyu shouted. Her fist was surrounded by the power of the 5 mountains descending from the heavens. At the same time, she raised her right hand, and the long sword and her palm were hidden behind the wide white imperial forest cloak. Flames surged and the long sword was surrounded by flames. The dragon flame's spiral break was already accumulating power. However, Qin Bing was only focused on dealing with the 5 mountains descending from the heavens, and did not notice that the spiral break was about to be completed. "Come on, you bastard." Qin Bing pushed out both palms, and it was actually a counterattack. His palms were filled with the divine power of the god-binding chains and the holy heaven realm Xianxia, and there was a faint sound of Sanskrit. It seemed to be an unknown move. "Screw it, I'll fight." Lin Muyu's killing intent was already determined. She suddenly opened her palms, and the 5 mountains descending from the heavens blasted toward Qin Bing's palms. Bang! The explosion was earth-shattering. Qin Bing was indeed not a simple divine sealing master. Not only was his engraving technique outstanding, but his cultivation was also not to be underestimated. Even after using 50% of his strength, his counterattack was still so powerful. The blood in Lin Muyu's body surged. This Qin Bing was really too powerful. He actually pushed her back, but at the same time she suddenly swung her right hand and sent out the dragon flame spiral break. Die. With a loud shout, Lin Muyu's palms were filled with raging flames. She controlled the stellar sword from a distance and launched a fierce attack. Qin Bing was also stunned. He hurriedly retreated a few steps, grabbed the long sword beside him and thrust it out. With a flick of his wrist, the blade of the sword started to sway faster and faster, forming a whirlpool of God-binding shackles power. Huai Wang was so smart. He actually wanted to use God-binding shackles to neutralize the powerful whirlpool of spiral break. Lin Muyu naturally wouldn't let him succeed. Her left hand grabbed backwards and directly through the demonic noise saber. Xiao. A sharp light flashed in the air and the demonic noise blade disappeared. However, a cold air attacked Qin Bing from behind. Even though he was in a half-human, half-zombie state, Qin Bing still retained a powerful sense of vigilance. He could sense that the saber was imbued with spiritual power and energy, and it was something that his suit of battle armor wouldn't be able to withstand. Qin Bing's expression instantly changed drastically, and he hurriedly slashed his sword toward the demonic noise saber. Clang! The demonic noise saber was sent flying, but the spiral break unleashed by the stellar sword was already unstoppable. Boom! 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 It consecutively broke through 3 layers of Qin Bing's defensive aura, and the sharp edge of the sword directly pierced into Qin Bing's chest. Puff! 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 His heart and lungs were completely shredded into pieces. However, his heart was like dried grass. It had long since withered and didn't provide any life energy at all. So what if it was shredded? Even so, Qin Bing still retreated several steps. His face was pale as he looked at Lin Muyu. You, corpse controller who was watching from afar, became anxious. He shouted, Qin Bing, if you lose, your heavenly book will no longer be yours. It will become someone else's. What? Qin Bing's expression suddenly became crazed and violent. He roared at Lin Muyu and shouted, You stinking brat, you actually want to steal this king's heavenly book? Die. Qin Bing didn't know where the power came from, but the 11 God-binding chains around him surged crazily. A blood-colored storm was gathered in his palm, and it surged endlessly. The stone slabs on the ground around him were all shredded into pieces by the storm. If this attack were to be unleashed, it would probably be a little unimaginable. So annoying, Lin Muyu couldn't stand it anymore. He didn't want to hold back anymore. He raised his long sword and star power flowed. Countless rays of starlight converged on his handsome body. 7 glorious stars transformation. The 7 luminaries' immortal sword seemed to be jumping with joy. Because a large part of its power originated from the 7 luminaries, it could be said that they were from the same source. Therefore, the 7 glorious stars transformation activated by the 7 luminaries' immortal sword was naturally even more powerful. Ah! Qin Bing also felt the power of the 7 glorious stars transformation. He couldn't help but laugh loudly. I didn't think that after so many years of death, I would still die here after being reborn. Good boy, you are a descendant of my Qin family. Kill me, destroy my body and soul, and no longer be controlled by that despicable person. As you wish. Lin Muyu suddenly stabbed out with his sword, and the power of the 7 glorious stars transformation blasted out like a surging river. When it swept through, it directly tore Qin Bing's body into pieces. Even the remaining wisp of his soul was destroyed. He had indeed fallen into the fate of being destroyed in body and soul. After using the 7 glorious stars transformation, Lin Muyu clearly felt that the power in her body was about to be sucked dry. However, with the strengthening of her cultivation realm and soul, the power of the 7 luminaries transformation was not as frightening. At least 10 to 20% of her fighting spirit was left in her body. She raised her hand to grab the demonic noise saber that flew back, and looked in the direction where Tang Xiaoxi and the corpse driver were fighting. When he looked over, he discovered that Tang Xiaoxi had thrown the 9-section whip to the side. She was purely fighting the corpse driver with her flesh and blood. A bitingly cold fire fox martial soul appeared behind her, and the fire fox martial soul became increasingly fierce in the battle. It transformed into sharp claws that appeared around Tang Xiaoxi's palms. Whoosh! When Tang Xiaoxi's palms swept past, the power of her martial soul appeared, and the fire fox's sharp claws immediately left a bloody wound on the corpse driver's chest. It seemed that there was no need for Lin Muyu to help at all. Tang Xiaoxi could already deal with the corpse driver. Bastard! The corpse driver's face was full of anger, and from time to time he looked back at the stone tablet behind him. Lin Muyu immediately walked over with her sword in hand. Her body was covered in dense king's fighting flame, and she quietly stood there to watch the battle. At the same time, she also cut off the corpse driver's escape route. It seemed that he did not come in through the entrance of the tomb, but secretly dug in. However, such a half-human, half-corpse corpse driver really did not know what he was after. Was it revenge on Qin Bing's corpse? Thinking of this, Lin Muyu could not help but think of Qin Bing's concubine. He married a young and beautiful concubine, and this concubine had a cousin who loved her deeply, which was the corpse driver in front of her. Then, after Qin Bing and the concubine died, this corpse driver came to torture Qin Bing's corpse to vent the pain in his heart. Well, it was 2F** king melodramatic. But at this time the corpse driver was in the most pain. It was already very painful for him to deal with Tang Xiaoxi, who had transformed into a nine-tailed beast. Now there was also Lin Muyu, who killed Qin Bing behind him. It was like a toad standing at his feet, not scary but disgusting. For a moment the corpse driver's moves began to be messed up. Let's end it. Tang Xiaoxi suddenly pushed out with her palm, and the powerful dark force directly blasted through the corpse driver's chest. He took a few steps back, looked at the bloody hole in his chest, and his face was full of disbelief. He took a few steps back, gently held a stone tablet behind him and said with a pale face, You can take all the treasures here, but don't touch the heavenly book, or you will bear the consequences. Heavenly book? Lin Muyu frowned and said, What exactly is the heavenly book? The corpse driver sneered, How can you mortals know the mystery of the heavenly book? Instead of letting the broken cauldron world, which can shake the world, reappear, it is better to make this land more peaceful. Moreover, I believe that reopening the heavenly imperial gate is also something that God Emperor Fuxi does not want to see. Humans are so greedy, wanting to get two after getting one. You are not worthy of the heavenly book. Where is the heavenly book? Lin Muyu asked indifferently. I won't say. The corpse driver smiled. Lin Muyu opened one hand and the king's battle flame gushed out, directly igniting the corpse driver's body that had already begun to wither. She said indifferently, Anyway, you are not a good thing and I don't want you to say anything else. Go to hell in peace, we will find the heavenly book ourselves. You little bastard. The corpse driver wailed in pain. He originally thought that Lin Muyu would continue to ask him for a few more lines, but he did not expect that this kid would not play by the rules. He was simply hateful. It didn't take long for the corpse driver to turn into a pile of ashes in the tomb chamber. Mu, you just used the 7 glorious stars transformation, are you okay? Tang Xiaoxi asked. I'm fine, I still have some physical strength. Lin Muyu was a little weak and said, Xiaoxi, let's quickly look for it and see where the heavenly book they were talking about is. Qin Bing and the corpse driver cherished this heavenly book so much, I have a feeling that this heavenly book is what I am looking for. The two of them searched around and searched everything but still could not find any heavenly book. However, the sword that Qin Bing left behind was very good. It was a second-rank saint-grade treasure sword, very exquisite. They kept it and could give it to Chuyao later to help her cultivate. Where is it? Lin Muyu was in pain. At this time, Tang Xiaoxi gently knocked on the bottom of the coffin with the back of her hand, and suddenly her eyes lit up. She smiled and said, This is hollow, there is a layer at the bottom of the coffin, Muyu, check it. The coffin was full of pieces of Qin Bing's corpse and some fallen skin, hair and so on. It looked very disgusting, but for the sake of the legendary heavenly book, Lin Muyu still reluctantly looked for it. After all, the corpse driver mentioned Fuxi and the heavenly imperial gate, which made Lin Muyu very surprised. Did the people of this world also know about Fuxi? Fuxi was a saint of China more than 10,000 years ago, an existence respected as the ancestor of the East. If Fuxi also existed in the Shattered Cauldron world, it could only mean that he had traveled through time, and even used the power of reincarnation to reverse time. Perhaps after Fuxi sprinkled the fire seed on Earth, he traveled forward 10,000 years and came to the Shattered Cauldron world to sprinkle the fire seed. Rustle, rustle. After lifting the wooden plank at the bottom of the coffin, they found a huge treasure box under Qin Bing's corpse. Lin Muyu's heart was filled with joy. She hurriedly took out the treasure box and said with a face full of joy, It should be this. Then quickly take a look. Opening the treasure box, there was a thick golden grimoire inside. It was a book made of pure gold, very heroic. And the cover of the book was engraved with ancient Eastern characters. Fuxi's heavenly book. God Emperor Fuxi, does Xiaoxi know this person? Lin Mu asked. I don't know, he should be a legendary figure from 10,000 years ago. Many of them have been forgotten by the world and we can only know about him by flipping through the ancient books. Mu, is this Fuxi's heavenly book the book you are looking for? I don't know, we'll know once we open it. There was an ancient seal on the heavenly book. Lin Muyu directly tore it and casually flipped to the first page. As expected, there were lines of formations engraved on it. It was the detailed explanation of the Imperial Fire Seal and the Imperial Thunder Seal, as well as the profound formation engraving method. At the same time, with a swoosh sound, a ray of golden light suddenly shot out from the heavenly book into the sky. It directly shot through the tomb chamber and out of the 9 heavens. Heavens! Tang Xiaoxi raised her head and looked up, saying, I feel like we've made a mistake. Chapter 486. This beam of golden light grew larger and larger, directly illuminating the sky. It actually slowly circulated and transformed into ancient seals. It was like a divine oracle had opened a mysterious gate. Immediately, a huge array of golden light was activated in the sky. In the blink of an eye, it spread out. The huge array occupied the sky above the shattered cauldron realm and continued to spread out, extending into many smaller arrays. It was as if some kind of drastic change was happening between heaven and earth. A mysterious power flowed between heaven and earth. The earth trembled and the river stopped flowing. In the early winter, the withered grass and leaves showed signs of recovery. The snow melted and a mysterious life force moved on the earth, turning the mountains and rivers of the Qin Empire green. In the heart-nurturing pavilion, a golden light shone down from the sky. Qin Han sat cross-legged in the pavilion, not opening his eyes. He only smiled faintly. Those 2 little fellows really opened the heavenly book of Fuxi. Forget it, this is fate. The power of heaven and earth has been sealed for thousands of years. It's time for it to be opened again. The 7 world palaces. Luo Lan and a group of people stood outside the palace and looked up at the ever-changing giant formation in the sky. They couldn't help but frown. The heavenly imperial gate has finally been opened. Could it be that the shattered cauldron realm is going to re-enter the era of the heavenly tomes? On the side, Lu Zhan said respectfully, Immortal Sovereign, since the heavenly imperial gate has been opened, then we must gather the earthly tome, heavenly tome and divine tome inscriptions before all the sects on the continent. Otherwise, if those dogs of the empire get to us first, I'm afraid it will be very disadvantageous to us. Luo Lan said indifferently, Lu Zhan, do you really think the 7 world palaces have to work for the Iha nation? Disciple doesn't dare to think so. Lu Zhan said, Celestial Sovereign is a god. You don't have to mess up your cultivation because of the troubles in the mortal world. But the people of the 7 world palaces are far from Celestial Sovereign's cultivation. So, a disciple feels that we still need to collect more heavenly tomes. Otherwise, the influence of the 7 world palaces in the mortal world will be greatly reduced. Luo Lan couldn't help but smile and wave her hand. All right, I'll leave the matter of the heavenly tomes to you. Yes. In the depths of the mountains, the old man who lived and slept in the open slowly lifted his white robe. Looking at the golden light formation in the sky, he couldn't help but frown and said, This is the profound strength of the heavenly imperial gate? Celestial monarch Fuxi's seal has been broken? Chu Chu frowned and said, I'm afraid those declining heavenly book clans are going to rise again. The empire is getting more and more chaotic, but it's good that the heavenly book has regained its strength and nourishment. This is at least a good thing for the empire. I wonder how you, Xiao Yin and Xiaoxi's cultivation is going recently. With Immortal Qin Han around, there shouldn't be too much of a problem, right? As he spoke, he continued to look at the herbs boiling in the pot. He couldn't help but have a face full of joy. These herbs are really magical. If I don't boil them, I won't be able to refine them. Naughty. Above the firmament in the myriad world divine realm. Outside the layers of immortal clouds, palaces stood majestically in the air. The palaces on a huge mountain range stretched for thousands of miles, which could be called a spectacle. Immortals could often be seen riding the clouds and roaming among them. In the midst of the continuous palaces, there was an extremely magnificent hall that emitted streams of holy power. It was extremely majestic. Guards in golden armor stood outside the hall. These guards all had solemn expressions and they held divine weapons in their palms. Their bodies were enshrouded with streams of divine power. Every one of them had the power of a god. In the hall, a group of strangely dressed god powerhouses stood respectfully under the steps. And on the steps sat a dignified god. Who else could it be but the 7 luminaries demon emperor? The 7 luminaries demon emperor crossed his palms and held his chin. He looked at the gods silently and said, "Have you found out who opened the heavenly imperial gate?" The Xian strength of our heavenly realm isn't enough for the gods to absorb and refine. This person from the human realm actually opened the heavenly imperial gate to draw the power of heaven and earth without saying a word. This is too much. Don't they know how to inform us first? Below, a god with the cultivation of a god king said respectfully, "Reporting to Demon Emperor, we have found out that there is only one key that can open the heavenly imperial gate. It is a heavenly book left behind by God Emperor Fuxi before he ascended to the heavens beyond heaven. It is called Fuxi's heavenly book. Not long ago this heavenly book was opened by someone from a plane under the myriad world stars." Which plane? Shattered Cauldron Realm. Fuxi's heavenly book has been buried for thousands of years, but now it has been opened. We have already found out through divine power that the kid who opened Fuxi's heavenly book is called Lin Muyu. He has the Demon Emperor's 7 luminaries' secret art. I don't know who he is. Oh, interesting. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor couldn't help but laugh. So he is a weakling. Ah, I knew it. How many mortals would jump around and ask for a beating? It's understandable that he is a weakling. The God King was stunned and said, "Demon Emperor, this person opened the heavenly imperial gate and let at least 30% of the heaven realm's power leak out. Should we send dozens of ultimate gods to the human realm to teach him a lesson?" "No need." The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor waved his hand and said, "Let the people of the Shattered Cauldron realm settle the matter. We don't need to interfere. Don't forget that we are gods. We have to act cool, okay?" The God King was completely stunned. Demon Emperor act cool is it something similar to godhood? The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor smiled faintly. You can think of it that way. Alright, what did the gods of the Polar Starry Realm say? Are they willing to join the Myriad Realm's divine realm and rule this divine realm with us? They said that the law they follow is the polar law. They only want to coexist peacefully with us. Demon Emperor, what should we do? What should we do? The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor raised his eyebrows and slapped the table. Beat them up. Beat them up until they are willing. Do you still need to ask me such a simple question? Send down the order immediately. Send 50 God Kings and 1,000 ultimate gods. If they can't beat them up, then tell me. I will do it myself. I haven't fought in a long time. My hands are itching. The God King, in the tomb, a certain someone who had caused a huge disaster, was still feeling smug. In a short 5 minutes he had read through the first 4 volumes of the Fuxi Heavenly Book. It had a very detailed record of all kinds of engraving techniques and seal formation diagrams from level 1 to level 7. This book was simply the most precious treasure in the world of engraving. However, there were still 3 volumes left, but they were all wordless heavenly books. Not a single word could be seen, which was depressing. Meanwhile, Xianxia noticed that other than the Fuxi Heavenly Book, there were a few other treasures in the box. There were 3 crystals that glowed with the luster of divine power. Holding them in her hands, she could feel the vast power contained in them. They were divine crystals, level 7 gems. They were also one of the most precious gems in the world. There were also 2 fiery red crystals. They did not look like stones but more like a pure energy body. Furthermore, they were incomplete fragments. What is this? Xianxia held the energy block in her hands and smiled. It feels so warm. Lin Muyu closed the Fuxi Heavenly Book and forcefully stuffed it into her heaven-earth bag. Only then did she look at the thing in Xiaoxi's hands. She could not help but tremble. This thing seemed to have caught a glimpse of it in the brain of the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor. She reached out to touch it. These 2 energy fragments actually resonated with a wisp of divine power in her hands. This wisp of divine power was left to her by the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor. It was real divine power, and it actually resonated with these 2 energy fragments. In an instant, Lin Muyu seemed to understand something. Her voice trembled as she said, "Shaoxi, this This fragment is probably the legendary Godhead Fragment. Godhead Fragment. Tang Xiaoxi was also surprised. She immediately felt how heavy these two fragments were. They were the essence of a god's body, the Godhead Fragment. Lin Muyu said, there should have been a war in the divine territory more than 4,000 years ago. It's normal for the Godhead fragments of fallen gods to be collected by humans. Qin Bing was an honorable martial artist other than the emperor at that time, so it's normal for him to have two Godhead fragments. However, his power wasn't enough to refine the Godhead fragments, so it'd be a waste to take them. Then can you refine them? Tang Xiaoxi naturally knew that Lin Muyu was unique in the art of refining. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to refine all kinds of god-level medicines, weapons, and so on. However, she did not ask for details since Lin Muyu was unwilling to elaborate. I can give it a try. Then I'll give it to you. Tang Xiaoxi very generously handed the two Godhead fragments to him and said with a smile, I have no use for these things anyway. We found these treasures together, so whoever needs them can have them. Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a bit awkward. That's so embarrassing. I found so many things but I didn't give anything to you. I gave them all to me. Humph. Tang Xiaoxi grabbed the fiery nation-suppressing whip and said, You forged such a precious holy weapon for me, but you didn't ask for anything from me, did you? If it were someone else, who knows what kind of unreasonable request they'd make. What kind of unreasonable request? Lin Muyu teased. You really are a bad guy. You only know how to tease me. Tang Xiaoxi's pretty face turned red. However, at this moment, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the tomb. Layers of dust and gravel fell continuously. Immediately Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi looked at each other, their faces pale. Usually what happens after a tomb raid? The tomb collapses. Run. Lin Muyu picked up Qin Bing's spirit-gathering sword and threw it into her universe pouch. She put away the shard of divinity and ran with Tang Xiaoxi toward the entrance. They didn't even have time to take the treasures buried with them and the golden coffin. What a pity they were all shiny silver. Tang Xiaoxi knew that Lin Muyu was still in the weakened state of the 7 glorious stars transformation, so she put his arm on her shoulder and ran with him. With a sudden shout, she transformed into the 9-tailed demon fox. Her breasts instantly increased by a cup, and Lin Muyu's eyes almost fell out of their sockets. They flew past and rushed out of the lake. Lin Muyu shouted, The tomb is about to collapse, Bai Yin, run. Bai Yin looked up and was overjoyed. He immediately ran with all his might, running even faster than Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi. Damn Bai Yin, how can you be a personal bodyguard? A certain imperial commander was furious, but Bai Yin's figure was already nowhere to be seen. There was no doubt about the world's #1 godly thief's Qin Gong.